Okay, I'm going to get straight into this one. Good evening to everybody that's watching. Good afternoon if you're watching it where you are, and good morning if you're just waking up. So we're going to talk about a couple of issues here. Good and diverse one, which is something that's deeply disturbing me. Before I continue, I want to clear a few things up. If there's any misunderstandings, people who are new to the channel, who don't know what angle or what agenda I'm coming from or what I believe or what I don't believe, listen. Let me clear some things up. First of all, the sport of boxing, as far as I'm concerned, is I have a lot of love for the sport. All right, I've boxed myself, I've coached it, I've boxed, and I'm not saying I know all, but I love my sport. I love the sport of boxing, and I'm interested in seeing the best fighters fight the best fighters. I'm also interested and I'm passionate about fighting. People fighting at the right time. When I mean the right time, I don't mean delaying fights due to financial gain. Of course, the fighters have to gain, and I'm all for that. But for me, the biggest issue for me is when fighters are getting in the ring and they're not ready. They're not fighting at their best ability. In other words, they're not using all the ability they've got over the years to get it together to be the best possible shape, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and use all the experience they have to fight on that night. Do you know, when you've got two unbeaten fighters clashing and at the top of the game, you make it makes for a competitive fight for the most part and makes exciting fights. But it's nothing worse than seeing two guys fight and you hear the excuses: the one guy's not fit, or he's not in shape, or he's come too late in his career, or come too early in his career. I like it just right. I keep cooking food. You like it just right. I don't want it raw, inexperienced, and I don't want it overcooked. Do you understand? Like Mayweather, Pacquiao. I want it just in the middle, and that makes for great fights. Hagler Hearns is one we talk about all the time. Hearns at the top of his trade, doing what he's doing, knocking people out. We all knew he was a big puncher. Hagler doing what he was doing. Two guys come together, boom, great fight. But there's many of those. Barrera Morales, nobody talking about, this guy, he's learning his trade on the road, all this nonsense of, he only had X amount of amateur bouts. I don't want to hear that stuff in a big fight that I'm paying for. I want to be hearing, when I'm watching two guys fight on here, these are two experienced fighters going for it. When DeGale fought Groves, still like the fight because they were both inexperienced at the time, and they've both gone and done their own things afterwards. Fair play. But I don't like watching boxing and you're telling me the guy's on the road learning and you're paying for him. You're paying a pay-per-view event and you're telling me he's on the road and he's learning. Well, if he's on the road and he's learning, then surely you should be paying to watch him fight in a pay-per-view event. Surely he should be learning his trade, getting to a point where he's at that point in the trade, and then paying for it. You understand? It's like, the description would be like driving your car as a learner along the road. Driving your car along the road as a learner, right, with a learner's plate, and then being, for example, being a learner or being a pilot, learning as a pilot, you're learning your trade. And then you're told, you know what? Get on this aeroplane. I want you to fly these people from London to America. I want you flying them. We're just going to put an L plate on you. You're still learning. You're still learning, yeah? How would you feel getting on a plane with a pilot who's still learning on the job? So these excuses are not good enough. I'm sorry, I don't buy the excuses, and it's not for me. But for me, it's not about names. I'm not interested in names. I'm interested in boxers' abilities, their what they do, i.e. what they do inside the ring, how they put their punches together, how they set their punches up, footwork, defense, ability to be defensive responsibility, how they set up their attacks, how to set up traps. Those things I'm really interested in. Their mindset, what they're focused on doing, whether they've got the ability to talk and say, look, you know what, I'm going to do this when I get in the ring, how dominant they are inside the ring, the reaction when they land a punch on somebody and the effect of that, or how they take a punch and they respond to that. Some of the greatest moments for me watching boxing have been watching fighters that you've never seen what they're like in a real big fight, and then they get hit on the chin and they respond positively. So they may get hit on the chin, get stunned, and then come back in a fight. That's why I loved Evander Holyfield so many times. I swear he was one of my favorite fighters. Because Holyfield, yes, he was, you know, you wouldn't call him defensively responsible, because I always talk about being defensively responsible, but his defense was his attack, really. So that was Evander Holyfield. And he'd get hurt in a fight, and he'd come back and he'd win a fight, getting hurt and come back, rallying. So that's it. So I want to make it clear that my agenda in boxing is to be as balanced as possible, to cut through all the BS, the propaganda, and the people out there that, for the most part, not for the most part, there are certain individuals of boxing that, hello, how we doing, my brother? Certain people within boxing that believe, mainly the hierarchy, there's certain hierarchy that believe that boxing fans are mugs. And I'm here to ensure the boxing fans don't get mugged off. Do you understand? And that's how it is. That's how I've been when I've done my interviews around the world, just whether who I'm talking to, whether it be Thurman, whether it be Tyson Fury, whether it be, you know, Muhammad Ali's brother. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. I'm still trying to ask the questions that people want the answers to. That's what it's always been about. And that's where we've always been in BWTM. It ain't about the color of a man's skin, nor is it about the promotional outfit they come from. It is what it is. Boxer's a boxer, judged on what he does inside the ring and what he does in lead up to the fight. That's it. Don't give a damn what the promoter's got to say, what the boxer is doing. I don't care what the media has to say. I don't care what a lot of these biased boxing writers and who are in the pockets of these promoters. I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested, thoroughly focused on the fighters. So here we go to our first conversation of the evening. It is a difficult conversation to have with some of you, but I'm going to have it. Before I do that, let me just see who's in the room and give him a quick shout out. Ruben Guerrera. Good, brother. Good to see you in the room. Faithful. Yes, Yasser has saying, good to see you in the room. Good to see you back again. How you doing? Good, you well. Hope you well. Let's see there. Who would you have liked Dubois to face before Joyce fight? We'll get to that in a minute. Yasser, filming a car show with L plates. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. That's awesome. Bro, it's awesome to have you in the room. Awesome to have you in the room. I'm glad you're watching the live show, and thank you so much for that. Yasser says, 100%. Absolutely, bro. Okay, let's get into it, style. So the question is Daniel Dubois being mismanaged? I doubt the Joyce fight goes ahead. Frank wants a crowd for this, and October looks way too soon. Retros for life. Yes, brother. Good to see you all too. Is Daniel Dubois being mismanaged? Well, it depends on how you're looking at this. If you believe that Daniel Dubois is going to absolutely smash Joe Joyce, you are going to listen to me and say I'm talking absolute nonsense. But I will tell you this. Yeah, well, I've told you about these people anyway. These people are in the pockets of other. Once a promoter gets you and allows you to get free tickets and pays for your hotel and your flights, you're as good as done. You're almost selling your soul out. So let me stay on point now with Daniel Dubois. What was I saying about Daniel Dubois? Oh, God, I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah, for those people who think that Daniel Dubois is going to steamroll through, Joe Joyce, then you might as well click off now, because this is not going to be good reading for you. But for those people who want to sit down and take a balanced view of things, I want you to look at something. First of all, I will say this, and I will say it, and I have no bones about what I'm saying here. You might as well click off now. Deontay Wilder is probably, if not the best managed boxer, one of the best managed boxers in the world today. If you look at his record, he's only fought a load of bums. He's well managed. And if they took the same approach with David Price today, you wouldn't be looking at David Price the way you looked at him today. It's because somebody in the back room got too smart too quickly and decided to put David Price in with Tony Thompson, which really literally put the end to his career right there. That was a big nail in the coffin, because before then, if you remember, David Price was here to the Klitschko's. Tony Bellew was saying he's ready for the Klitschko's. A lot of people were talking about David Price like he was the next coming of the next Klitschko's. There was even talk about David Price training with the Klitschko's potentially. And you saw what happened. You saw what happened. Somebody got smart in the back room because Tyson Fury was going to go and fight Steve Cunningham. So Frank Maloney decided, oh, well, if Tyson's going to fight Steve Cunningham, we've got to do something. I tell you what, we're going to fight Tony Thompson. There was no need for you to go and fight Tony Thompson. You were just trying to be clever. You were just trying to be smart. What happened is you fought Tony Thompson twice and you got outdone twice. The first time you got beat, we had, oh, it's only a lucky punch. It was only a lucky punch. There's only a lucky punch. I'll stick a 10 on Pricey. He'll get it right. He'll get it right. I'm looking going, nope. Nope. Tony Thompson is a far better caliber fighter. But you're not getting this. So we have to fight again. Let's get Lennox Lewis on board. Why are we getting Lennox Lewis on board for? Oh, because he's a former heavyweight champion of the world. Oh, that's nice. Former undisputed champion. That's nice. How many southpaws did he fight? None. None. None in his heavyweight career did he fight. Why would you bring Lennox Lewis in? Your fight is in the balance, yeah? Your career's in the balance. You bring in an unproven trainer. But anyway, the Danny Dubois situation. We're going to come right back to Danny Dubois right here. Danny Dubois, as far as I'm concerned, has fought nobody of note that's given him preparation to fight the Olympian Joe Joyce. Let's look at Danny Dubois' record a second, just for a second. And we're saying we're preparing because you prepare a fighter. You should be preparing as a matchmaker, preparing your fighter to face Joe Joyce. We know this Joe Joyce fight is going to happen. We've been talking about it for the longest while. We know it's going to happen. Okay? Let me try and get this screen up, if it lets me. Let's see what people are saying. Okay. There's a lot of white coming up there. Let's go up there. Take that off. Yeah. Let's get this up. Share screen. Okay. And we're going to go to Danny Dubois' box rec. Okay. Well, you can see me here. See this box rec. So I'm not. Let's see if you can see that. Can you all see that? Danny Dubois' box rec. I don't know why it keeps clicking on that. Right. It's Danny Dubois' box rec, so you all can see it. But I'm looking at the last 3 to 4 opponents. Okay, we know he's 15-0, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But I want to look at his last 4 or 5 opponents. So the first guy, okay, we'll talk about his big punching power he's got, yeah? Well, he fought Kevin Johnson. He fought Kevin Johnson, right? He went to points with Kevin Johnson. Now, bearing in mind that he's just this big puncher, yeah? Okay, Herkovich, we went to points with Herkovich. Dubois, he went to points with Herkovich. He went to points with Dubois. He went to points with Herkovich. Andrew Ruiz. Gorman on points. And then you got Martin Bacoli, who stopped him. And then, of course, the other day, he got a win against Juan Pablo Hernandez. That's Kevin Johnson. Safety pin Johnson, right? We want to talk about this guy who got blown out. Then we got Richard Lartey. Richard Lartey was the first guy that actually decided to have a fight with Danny Dubois. Okay? So, look at the guys he fought in his record. 13-7, 5-7, 5-9, 20-5, 10-2, 10-0 with Danny Dubois. So, Richard Lartey, before he fought Danny Dubois, I fought nobody. And I was raving about that fight. In a fight that it was life and death, he went with Richard Lartey. All right, let's continue. This is Richard Lartey now, right? Okay, so for a Richard Light fight, for Nathan Gorman. Okay, let's look at Nathan Gorman's record. No disrespect to Nathan Gorman, right? But you look at Nathan Gorman's record. Look at the guys. Okay, 13-0 he fought Mohammed Saltby. Beat him. Don't know who he was. Then Sokolowski. Okay, not bad. Fought the same guy. Conjura. Kevin Johnson. But how many winning records did he have there? Okay. Again, looking. And not being fair, Nathan Gorman was terrified of him. Then there was Ebenezer Tete. Never been beaten before. He was unbeaten. Okay. Look at the guy he fought. He fought more or less the same guys that the other guy fought from Africa. Look at the record. Look at the records of these guys. How can you fight guys with a record like that and then go and fight Daniel Dubois who's 12 and up? How can you do that? I don't get it. All right. These are the guys that Daniel Dubois has been facing. Or Daniel Dubois' opponents have been facing. Let me go to box records again. Go back a second. Right. So what's the point here now is we know that the Joe Joyce's fight is coming up, yeah? So he fights this guy, Fujimoto. Fuji flipping Moto. I mean, look at this. 10-3, 6-2, 11-5, 10-1, 12-5, 8-3, 11-4, 12-9, 13-10. We had a rematch of the guy he fought. And then he fought Danny Dubois. Look. Where are they picking these guys up from? Literally. Not I hate to use the word rent-a-bum, because that's a word that Uncle Bashir said, rent-a-bum, but it's ridiculous. I mean, okay, so you're telling me that this guy Fujimoto, right, and Ricardo Schneider's, his record, 9-6, 6-8, fought one unbeaten fighter there, 3-1, 9-26, 12-14, 5-0, okay, 5-2, 7-13, and then he goes and fights Daniel Dubois. All right, fine. So those are the guys that Daniel Dubois has his opposition. Now, that's what, in terms of opposition, that's the opposition, the level of opposition that Daniel Dubois has been facing, right? And that's fair enough if you're taking him on the road, right? I've got no problems if you're building him up as you were building Wilder. Just building him up, but wait. Let me look at who George Joyce has been fighting, just for a second. Right, 11-0, okay? So, look at the guys that he's been fighting now. So, Ian Lewison, Leroy Thomas for the Commonwealth title, Baccarin. Now, this guy here, Kaladze. This guy here, Kaladze fought. Guess who Kaladze went and fought? This guy's dangerous in the sense that he fought F.A. Jagbar. Can I remind people that when he fought F.A. Jagbar, he dropped F.A. Jagbar, and everyone's raving about F.A. Jagbar. Okay? So, Joe Hanks, former world champion Stavern, Ustinov, Jennings, and Wallish. You look at the guys that are there that he's fought. Okay, let's look at Stavern, Ustinov, Jennings, and Wallish. You tell me, in those four guys, right? Those are the last four guys he's fought. Joyce, look at the type of guys he's fought, and the type of guys they're getting beat by. Stavern got beat twice by Deontay Wilder, and he had a robbery loss. Ustinov, you look at the level these guys have been fighting at. Ustinov, right? Joe Joyce, Michael Hunter, Manwar Shah. Look at the records the guys have fought. Maurice Harris even fought. David Tua. My word. Look at the type of guys these guys have been facing. You know, people are ranked in the top 10 or have been ranked in the top 10. Where can you tell me that Daniel Dubois has been properly prepared to face Joe Joyce? Oh, we don't need properly preparing. He's good enough to beat Joe Joyce. He's probably good enough to beat Joe Joyce now. Listen to me now. See, the problem with British boxing is you'll call it an upset. If Joe Joyce beats him, you'll call it an upset. But you didn't do your homework beforehand. As far as I'm concerned, Dubois fought absolutely nobody to prepare him for Joe Joyce. And he needs to be prepared for Joe Joyce. Needs to be prepared for Joe Joyce. Now, I'm going to add something to this mix as well. As soon as I can get my mouse to work. Let's see, says Retro says, DDD needs to fight a fighter that's going to give him resistance. It's a huge crop of undefeated prospects that need to get in the ring together. Ah, there you go. Got it right there. Right in the head there, mate. Right, let's see here. Wow, there's a lot of people saying, let's see. Yeah, King could just stop a guy. Going to Pundits Johnson tells everything we need to know about Dubois. If Dubois does win, it will be in spite of his previous, not from what he has done. A lot of them was made of the Gorm win, but Gorm was in no proper state to fight him. That was some BTBS. AJ battered him around. We're talking about Kevin Johnson here. I swear I'm going to have to get a mouse. This is ridiculous. Harsh to say life and death. Well, it was life and death. Well, did he blow Larty away in a round like he blew away Schneider's? That's life and death for me. Dubois Joyce didn't happen. I've seen an HBO bum bashing for the next few fights. DDD is creating more jobs for governments by killing off all bin men and road sweepers. Don't be like that. Listen, if they're doing it, if they're going along the Deontay Wilder way of doing things, I agree with it. If they're going straight into Joe Joyce now, there's a problem. Rent a bum. Fujimoto, Spicy and Larty, tea for Sunday market. I love Queensbury. This is normal matchmaking, no? No, not really. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that's normal Warren matchmaking. In fact, if you think about it, you look at how Warren matched Kalzaki, how he matched Hatton, and how he matched Nathan Cleverly. I bet even fighters like Molina, Brazil, take Dubois the distance, full distance. Interesting. Bricktop has a knack of finding these sort of fighters. May I just remind you what happened not too long on DAZN with that young lady? We could go on. Let's not go there. Only once fanboys were high on Ajagba. Dubois' face and head shape always reminded me of a Pokemon. He looks like he should have been on a trading card. Oh my God. I was going a bit on Joyce, but no point. I reckon Warren's got cold feet. You kept saying how good Frank is at bringing fighters through, but he's a veteran. Stop. I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming from you. And here's this. You have to look at the landscape now. Not the landscape of Frank Warren back then. Now, he has to have a pay-per-view fighter. He's got Tyson Fury. But after Fury, who's next? So between Joyce, you remember this. Frank signed Dubois to a new 5-year contract not too long ago. So you signed a 5-year contract. You have to have a big fight for BT. Frank's got to pull his finger out and say, right, who are you going to give us? What's our next big fight? Dubois, Joyce. Joyce needs to get a move on, and Dubois wants to prove himself. But I want to know who's managing Dubois, because whoever's managing Dubois is really taking a chance with him, because there's nothing to suggest he's good enough to beat or experienced enough to beat Joyce at this stage of his career? Who's he beaten for you to suggest that? It's really chance you're taking here. And the landscape today, what I'm saying to you is that Frank now's probably got more pressure on him now to deliver because he's got the BT Sports deal. So he has to deliver certain fights. And I believe there's a push, there's a bit of pressure on him to make fights. So Dubois Joyce is one of those fights that it's one that'll bring the fans in. One that'll bring the fans. Why don't they want to fight behind closed doors then? Clearly, because it makes money. So it's a fight that needs fans. You know? It's a fight that needs fans. So there's my point there. Kevin Johnson is a tough journeyman. He rarely ever gets stopped in respect. But Martin Bakole stopped him. But Joe Joyce has been in with much better opponents. He has. That's a fact. He's been in with better football. So, and remember, they've sparred before in the amateurs. And here's this. There's a lot of talk about Dubois choking in sparring. I've heard this rumor been flying around a few times where he's literally quitting sparring when people have put it on him. Now, if this rumor is true, you know, it's not just about having big punches. If it is really true that he's been choking in sparring, I don't know how true it is, but it's true he's been choking in sparring. And you guys who are backing Dubois, I don't know. Velkovic should be managed the same way as Dubois. He's fighting a guy next who has been retired for 6 years. Not really, because Hergovic is not fighting Joe Joyce next. So I don't understand what you're talking about. If Hergovic were next to go and fight Deontay Wilder, I'd get it. Or he was going to fight Tyson Fury next, I'd get it. Or he was going to fight Andy Ruiz next, I'd get it. But he's fighting Parla, who Derek Chisora fought years ago. And actually, Parla did hurt Chisora in that fight. Skipping that. 5 years is a long time. This is a step up. Calculate this for Frank, as he's with both fighters. Yes. He is with both fighters. Everyone sees he's a stiff robot. I disagree that Joyce is a stiff robot. In that case, then you might as well call George Foreman a stiff robot, because Joyce and George Foreman, young George Foreman, if you look at young George Foreman and you look at Joe Joyce, I keep telling you all over and over again, you won't listen to me. Young George Foreman, Joe Joyce is a similar version of that type of guy. Slow, sort of plodding, puts you against ropes, puts a jab on you and drops big right hands on you. Watch the way Foreman fights or watch the way Joyce fights. Watch the way those two guys fight. Very similar. Very similar. He's not stiff. I wouldn't call him stiff. I wouldn't call Joyce stiff. I really wouldn't. Joyce certainly has the better resume so far. Jennings, Taverne at this point. Dubois' best win is Gorman. Granted, he's younger than Joyce, so Joyce had better move quicker. Well, maybe. Not really. That doesn't work in heavyweight boxing. In heavyweight boxing, you've got more time for whatever reason that is. You know, some of these heavyweights don't get better until they're 35, 36. You understand? So I don't buy that Joyce has to hurry up. The landscape now shows us Warren is desperate to make big fights because the man is broke. Quite possibly. Quite possibly. I don't know. I don't know his finances. I don't know his bank book. But, you know, that could be a possibility. The fact it doesn't look good on paper, but Frank's promoting both fighters could be telling. Yes, that's what I'm saying to you. Frank's got to promote both fighters. And he's got to push to make this fight happen. Do you understand? He's promoting both guys. But Joyce by far is the more experienced fighter. Joyce beats Dubois. Well, I'm saying that. I was sparring with a pinch of salt. Gorman said he used to school Dubois in sparring. He didn't fare well when he fought him. Well, he might have schooled him in sparring. But we're not talking about sparring session. We're talking about a mental state. We're not talking about sparring. We're talking about mental state here. You didn't hear me talk about people beating people up in sparring. I talked about the mental state. Catch what I'm saying. Mental state. And as a coach for over 20 years and still working with some top people, your mental state, at that level, it's your mental state. Not so much your physical. You can get your physical into shape, but here mentally, when the punches start flying back at you, when you start being backed up, that's another situation. Does Dubois fancy a real fight? You all talk about Dubois, but nobody can tell me, or nobody of these people who are backing Dubois can tell me he don't mind a fight. I've seen Joyce in a fight. I've seen Stavern go for him. I've seen the guy that dropped the Jagba go for Joyce. I've seen guys go at Joyce and fight Joyce back. Why didn't Dubois fight Wallish? Wallish would have been a good opponent for Dubois. That would have been a good fight. Why are they not? Why are they putting him with opponents like this? Nathan, do you think Gorman gets iced by Latte? Oh dear. Oh dear. Won't be good. Joyce past opponents, Stavern and Jennings would take Dubois the distance. Come on, Ingram. I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that, but a lot of people in the room would even Serenko's been bashing up Daniel. Oh. Lati is dangerous early on, but would expect Gorman to outbox him. I've got to get a move on this. When Joyce faced Usyk, that was the semi-pro. What? He still faced him. If it was less than 50-50, would Frank be under that much pressure to risk his rising up kind of star? Listen, he's got a 5-year deal. You can always bring Dubois back. All right? This is Joyce's coming out moment. This is about celebrating Joe Joyce, not Daniel Dubois. That's the way I look at it. If Daniel Dubois beats Joe Joyce, well, it's a bonus. Usyk would be the bogeyman in the division. Yeah. You become a bogeyman in the division by beating Chaz Witherspoon, right? That's how you become a bogeyman in the division, right? Who do you believe a loss will hurt more at this point, DDD or Joyce? I like both guys. Joe Joyce. But I don't believe Joyce is going to lose this fight. I think his experience. You got to remember, Joyce has been around. He's fought around the world. Look at Daniel Dubois' amateur caliber, and look at Joyce's caliber. It's man and boy, quite literally man and boy. I need to get Sam Jones in the room. I really need to get an interview with Sam Jones, talk to him. If Eddie wants to take over box, oh dear me, let's skip that one. Sorry. Take Frank's confidence in Dubois and knowing Frank and the survivor, he'd probably make right move with Dubois. Okay. Please, let's stay on topic. I really haven't got time to talk about anything else tonight. I'm just trying to stay on topic because I've got 3 topics to get through. When Ingram puts his pillow at night, he has nightmares about Usyk. I don't have nightmares about Usyk. After the Chaz Witherspoon fight, no chance. Nah, Stavern didn't go 12 rounds. Don't go 12 rounds to Dubois. Really? What I mean is, what level was that when Usyk fought Joyce? World Boxing Series, wasn't it? Usyk's most talented in the division by far. Really? Based on what? Who has he fought in the heavyweight division to make that statement? Who has he fought? Chaz Witherspoon. Is that it? He's most talented. Frank is trying to make Dubois a pay-per-view regular on BT. Well, he might be trying to, but that's not the way you go about it, is it? All right. So, me personally, my personal opinion is I think Dubois is being he's being mismanaged personally. I don't think he's been prepared right to fight Joe Joyce. I think Joe Joyce is another league and another level. Experienced pro, has got the amateur pedigree behind him. Good chin, good punching power, good stamina, can go the distance. I think Joyce is levels above. That's my personal opinion. But that's it. So next question I've got to bring up quickly is, I know I have 3 topics. I can't remember what the 3 topics were now. Let me remind me what the 3 topics were. All right. Second topic. I'll have to mix this up a bit. I want to talk about Dillian Whyte. It was no surprise that Dillian Whyte would get a 30-day suspension after being knocked out so badly. My thoughts on him getting back straight into training? Well, it's psychological. I mean, he might try and ignore it now, but at what point does that psychologically, after you've been knocked out like that, when does that come back to revisit you? Not everybody's wired the same way. Joshua had time to prepare. you know, to prepare for that rematch with Ruiz. I don't know, you know, how the impact of that knockout is going to affect Dillian Whyte's durability in this upcoming fight with Povetkin. And if there is an immediate rematch, then Povetkin's people should order it to be in Russia. If they want the rematch so much, the fight should be in Russia. Well, I don't see why Povetkin should have to give an opportunity. You know, I know he's got on a contract, but, you know, I'm sure Povetkin's people have got enough money behind them to buy out that contract and say, Mr. Whyte, sorry, sayonara, we're on our way. So that's that. Finally, because I've got to cut this short tonight, Sky Sports. A lot of you complain about the commentary team. I don't mind. They do me a favour. But the commentary team, the punditry team, if you could change the punditry team on Sky, who would you pick to have on your punditry team? Who would you have? If you could pick a who's who in boxing, who would you have doing commentary? Well, for me, I definitely, because BT Sports, Sky, I'd like to have Peter Fury in the I'd like to have Peter Fury there. I think he'd do really good. Peter Fury would be really good. It's dangerous letting him fight so soon after that KO. It is. It is. I think so. But who do you think Dubois? I just said who I thought. I think Michael Wallace. Here's three guys that I think Dubois should be fighting before he fights Joyce. Whack, Wallace, and Ustinov. Three guys. Three big, strong guys. Physically big and imposing guys that Dubois should knock over, but they're a step up in class. They're more experienced. They've been there. They've seen it. They've done it. Paulie, Andy Lee, Adam Booth. Forget Paulie. Andy Lee, I like Andy Lee. He's cool. Adam Booth. Yeah, Adam Booth's cool. Yes, Adam Booth. I'd add Peter Fury into that. I think he really does know the game well. I like Duke McKenzie. I think Duke McKenzie's good. I think Nassim Hamed. I would love to have Nassim Hamed. Nick Marsden, best trainer. Interesting you say that. Nick Marsden. Nick Marsden, didn't he train Dave Allen? You would need commentators that aren't in fear of their jobs. Macklin started off very well, but he's towing the company line now. Well, if I had Sky, what I would do, Glenn McCrory, Ian Dark, those boys back on the mic. That's the first thing. You can't go better with Glenn McCrory, Ian Dark. Those two boys on the mic doing boxing commentary. Bringing boxing back to how it used to be. That's how it should be. Make boxing great again. So those two guys. A third guy. I think Ian Dark, Duke McKenzie, and Ian Dark, Duke McKenzie, and Glenn McCrory. Those three. Okay? Glenn McCrory, Ian Dark, Glenn McCrory, Ian Dark, and Duke McKenzie. Those three. Duke McKenzie. Those three. I don't know if Duke's a company man because I'm running Sky now. So I'm running Sky now. So in about a company man, I'm running Sky. So those would be my three guys there. Remember, I'm running Sky, so I would have them. No, he's gone. He's gone. Adam Smith is gone. I want a boxing man in charge of things. Head of Sky, boxing. You know who I'd bring in? Possibly, potentially. Head of Sky. Be interesting. But I'd be or if I was going to get rid of, those 3 things, then I would offer Layla Ali a contract. I want Layla Ali in there doing commentary. I'd like to have her as a pundit. Layla Ali. No, not Roy. Roy. No. I'd like to have Layla Ali in there. Man, but I want Layla Ali in there. I want Layla Ali in that mix because she's a female. She knows her boxing, former champion. Peter Fury as in studio pundit. What happened to Nicky Piper? He went missing. Who else? Sky. Barry Jones. I want commentary, but I would like to have him in, like doing Daddy. Yeah, I'd like to have him as well in. No, not Dennis Hobson. I'd like to have Barry Jones in. I'd like Barry Jones in. I think he's pretty sensible. I like Barry Jones. Pretty good, and he's former stablemate as well. So I like Barry Jones. I like what Barry Jones has got to say. Yeah, I'll have to think about it a bit more, but I'm gonna get my team together. But yeah, definitely. Somebody I would like to see a lot more in boxing. We don't see much of, for female boxing particularly, is Jane Couch. I'd like to see Jane Couch. Give Jane Couch more of a run out. I'd like to see more of Jane Couch. Forget Lennox Lewis, man. Yeah, David Hayes got to be in the studio. You got to have David Hay in the studio. Definitely got to have David Hay in the studio. So yeah, I think I've got David Hay, Peter Fury, Layla Ali. What was the 4th one? There was somebody else I did as well. 3, I don't know. The 4th one will be. Head of boxing. Don't know. Might be a big one for him. Head of boxing. Head of boxing. I'll have to think about who the head of boxing Sky would be. Some way or the other, I would like to get Sugar Ray Leonard involved. And you could say I'm being a bit Americanist. I love the Americans. But I'd like to get Sugar Ray Leonard involved. I really would. Sugar Ray is great on the camera. Great voice of boxing. I remember what he did for the Contender Series. It was amazing. I'd like to get Sugar Ray Leonard involved in some way, shape, or form. You know, maybe he could be doing the breakdowns of certain fights, middleweight or super middleweight fights. Or yeah, I would like to have, for particular categories of boxing, for Big Porky, well, for particular parts of boxing, like if we do the heavyweight division, like we do like the featherweights, I definitely would like Nassim Hamid to be in there talking about. I want Nassim Hamid period to be around, so to have Naz in as well. Nassim Hamid will definitely be there. Don't know about week to week, Naz, but I'd like to have Naz in there for the big fights. Definitely, I think they need to be, for the big fights. They need to be a big fight atmosphere. They need to be the big fight commentary team. Do you understand? The pundits for big fights, only for big fights, only for pay-per-views. I think pay-per-view should have the best of the best doing it. I think best of the best doing it. You understand? When see you've got that big fight atmosphere, when you see that punditry team, do you understand? Bring you the big fights. You know when you see Glenn McCrory and Ian Dark, just like back in the day where it used to be, you had this random, like not random, but you had a guy, a lesser known announcer. Porky head of PR. Well, interesting. Head of PR. And then you had the head of PR. No, head of PR. Damn it. Head of commentating. Not commentating. Oh my God, you confused my brain up now. The announcer. You used to have these like announcers that you didn't really know who they were. And then Michael Buffer would be, when it was main event, you knew it was Michael Buffer. I think the same thing should be done on pay-per-view events. And pay-per-view events, you need to security, maybe. Oh dear. I think at the end of the day, look at this. Dear me. But I also do think, and here's what I think, that if I was a head of Sky, then I think someone like Porky would be great, because voice of the people, isn't it? So you could have a voice of the people. You could have Porky basically going undercover, or basically turn up to gyms and asking trainers what the hell's going on. Where's the B sample? Blah, 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 blah. But Porky could be a man. Porky could be like, do you remember the Cook Report? Do you remember the Cook Report? Where Roger Cook, he was an absolute legend, knocked on people's doors, say, oh, you're a crook. And, you know, Roger Cook would knock on all these criminals' doors and all these gang members, he'd knock on their doors, asking questions, wanting to find out the truth. You could get Porky doing a similar thing for Sky. You know, knocking on Eddie's door and asking Eddie those tough questions that nobody else wants to ask Eddie. Instead of doing those scripted interviews, Eddie answers some questions. Frank, answer some questions. Mick, answer some questions. Do you understand? And we can actually get to the bottom of who, for example, do I rate Alan Smith's commentary? No. No, I don't. Yeah, you could. I think it would work. I think it could work. No, seriously, you're laughing. I think it could work. I think Porky could do it. Then you get him and get in his car. This week, Porky's going to so and so place, and he'll be investigating what's happened here. You know, it could work. It could work. And if Sky are listening, or BT are listening, get a man like Porky on the job. He'd be brilliant for the job. You know what I mean? You definitely get your answer to your questions. And if you didn't get your answer to your questions, everyone would know about it. Just give them a bigger platform to do it. I think it would be brilliant. I think it'd be great entertainment. But not just Porky, anybody like that who's going to ask questions and get answers out of people. I think there needs to be a slot for that. Something a bit controversial. You know. Anyway. I'm biased, but I like McGuigan back in the day. Yeah, McGuigan was cool back in the day. To an extent. McGuigan was cool until he started getting his own fighters. That's when it became a conflict of interest, and that's when McGuigan had to disappear. Because you had McGuigan talking about fighters, and you hold on a second. Yeah, he likes that guy. Hold on a second, it's McGuigan's fighter. Ah, got it now. So McGuigan was great until he started signing fighters. Then it became, listen to McGuigan talk was a bit difficult. Right, I got to get out of it because I've got a show to do tonight. Yeah, I got a show to do tonight. I was meant to do something else on the show tonight as well, and I totally forgot. Is Danny Dubois mismanaged? I think he is. I think Sky need to change their whole lineup because it don't work, personally. They definitely need to change their lineup. Right, let me get out of here. I've got a show to do in about half an hour over on BWTM. Yeah, I'm doing BWTM. Basically, I do a show weekly for the island of my grandmother in Grenada. There's a lot of injustice on the island, lots of police brutality, a lot of stuff like that going on the island. And we've basically had a lot of influence now. The police are now starting to wear cameras on their uniform. So that's really good. So that'll be on BWTM. That'll be playing out on BWTM on the Facebook page and on YouTube. So that'll start at 11 p.m. tonight. He's one of the best. Right, let me get out of here. Thank you all for watching. Have a really great evening, and check out those interviews that I've been, those old school interviews. If you haven't listened to already with Tyson Fury, did some gaming early on today. Check out, oh, by the way, before I go, make sure you check us out on Twitch. Across to Twitch. That's where we're at on Twitch. Check us out. Have a great evening.